for who comes here for the first time. For the students, obviously, we know. Tonight, we're gonna have Indian-inspired food from, I should say, a big profile in the London food scene. From Kricket, Chef Will Bowlby. Would you welcome him, please?
Thank you, Mauro. Can you hear me? Yeah? I should introduce Chef Colin, who you all know. He taught me everything I know. I don't know if you know that. He was my first boss. a long time ago. So I've got him to thank for quite a lot, really. And Malavika and Anisha, who have really done all the hard work today. And of course, Shona from our HR team down there, who will field all your questions later. Thank you for having me. Do you all know Kricket? Yeah. Me and my business partner started the restaurant back in 2015, and we built it into a shipping container whereby I was cooking down one end and he was serving the food to about 20 customers. And yeah, that was our first foray into trying our own restaurant. And since then we moved to Soho, which is our sort of flagship now. It's now our oldest restaurant. And then we opened two quite quickly back in Brixton, which is where the original container was from, and then over in White City in the television centre. And we're about to open another one in East in July. So yeah, that's us. We do Indian food. I know I'm not Indian, but I try my best to do kind of my or our interpretation of Indian food. I used to live in Mumbai. That's where the idea behind the concept came from. I wanted to do showcase a lot more of Indian food than what was being shown here already. So that's the idea. Today we're going to do two dishes that you'll get to try at the end. One is a pani puri, and the other one is a mutton meatball curry. So two very simple dishes that hopefully you can recreate. So I'll just crack on, right? We'll all crack on.
Absolutely.
We'll talk you through what we're doing, and I think ask any questions you wish as we go. So I think we'll start with the pani puri. So pani is the shell. Do we have the shell to hand? You can make these, but these semolina shells, they go soggy very quickly, and we're doing vast quantities of them in the restaurant, and these ones keep very, very nicely. So this is the puri, and the pani is the water that goes inside it, and it's kind of a little explosion in your mouth. So what we're going to do first is make the so inside the puri we're going to make a tomato rasam. So tomato rasam is like a southern Indian hot and sour sort of broth, or a soup, and so it's spicy with chili and sour and a little sweet and delicious. Traditionally served hot, but we make ours and then we chill it down, and then we strain it so it's nice and clear, and then we put it into the puri. So you have all those flavors, but it very much concentrated and chilled, which I think in the summer is particularly nice. So the rasam has a seasoning mix, so it's just like a spice mix. Like with a lot of different curries or Indian flavors dishes, you'll have different masalas that will flavor that dish and that are specific to that dish. And in this case, it is this rasam seasoning, which you start with some chana dal, and you roast the dal off. Do we have a spatula? Yeah, thanks. So you roast the dal off first. when you're doing spice mixes, not all spices or pulses or things like that cook at the same time. They have different temperatures in which they react to. So it's not a case of just like bunging everything into the same pan or into the oven at the same time. This dal is quite, it's obviously quite hard, so you kind of want to roast that first. And what that does is it softens the lentil, and it will make it like, it will give the seasoning mix like a nutty flavor. Yeah, so we start with that, and then we will go in with our whole spices. Again, these chilies will take the least time, so we'll leave those out. Next, we'll put in these peppercorns, coriander seeds. You see that up there? Yeah. And cumin seeds. Okay, so that all goes in. And then all we do is we roast that off. And again, you don't want the heat to be too high. You want to kind of evenly toast the spices. You don't want to burn them. And I would go low and slow when you're doing like spice blends. So that can kind of sit for a little bit. You can see the dal is going a little brown. And again, you just really want to like roast these spices just to kind of release the oils, release the aroma. The chilies can go in, and then we're going to leave it on this like relatively medium heat hot plate where it can just kind of sit for a bit. What we'll do after that is we will cool the spices down before we blend them, and that's always the thing to do when you're making like a powdered masala, is to cool the spices down before you start to blend them. If you blend it when it's hot, there's still moisture in the spices, and they will kind of come together. But this way, if you cool it down before you blend it, then it will get like a nice powdery texture. Okay, so that's that. Next, we're going to make the actual rasam itself. Has anyone had rasam before? Yes. Okay, so you're familiar with like the flavors of a rasam. Yeah. Okay, cool. Great.
No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah, yeah. So is this the rasam? So let's start with some oil. And we're going to start the rasam by tempering some spices. Again, when you temper spices, you all needs to be hot, but not too hot. You don't want to burn the spices. As soon as you burn the spices, there's no going back. You can't retract. That's that. You start again. And what you want to do, I mean, quite often when you're making a curry or a dish like this, you start with tempering the spices. Tempering can happen quite often at the beginning of the dish, and then it also happens. It can happen towards the end of the dish to kind of re-add all that like spicy flavor into the dishes. So we'll start with some mustard seeds. Now, mustard seeds, it's very important that the oil is hot enough so that they start to crackle when you add them to the oil. If the oil's not hot enough, mustard seeds don't cook at the right temperature, and they remain quite bitter. So it's quite important that quite often when you're tempering spices, mustard seeds will usually be one of the first to go in, and you can see that they're starting to crackle straight away, which is good. That's a really important stage. Like I said, if the oil's not hot enough, they will stay bitter. Then we're going to go in with these methi seeds, or dried fenugreek seeds. Again, they need to be cooked off properly. And then some cumin seeds. Cumin seeds take less time, they can go in last. Okay. And then we'll go into curry leaves. Curry leaves, I don't know if you're familiar with cooking with curry leaves. Probably my favorite ingredient. I think they're becoming more and more available. Do you get them much?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you use them here much? They are got a very distinct. I struggle to describe the kind of flavor of mustard seeds. Really, how would you describe them? Because we use a lot of them. Like we go through a huge amount, and I guess they're kind of like earthy, but very very distinctive and unique. And it's probably why we use a lot of them in our cooking. Again, this is a southern Indian dish, so these kind of these flavors are very typical of southern India. You know, curry leaves and mustard seeds and tamarind and tomato and things like that. So
you actually do a curry leaf mayonnaise in one of your restaurants, don't you? Which is
we do indeed, yeah.
And so when you say that you use quite a lot of them, I think that's a bit of an understatement. I've been to Will's restaurants and I've seen the quantities that he cooks at, and I've never seen deliveries of spices like it. Yeah, I know the mayonnaise that you use, the curry leaf mayo, very nice.
Yeah. So that's on our kind of most, probably our most popular dish, which is our Carolyn fried chicken. Again, like southern influenced dish. Has anyone had it before? No. But yeah, go through a lot of curry leaves. So I'm adding turmeric next, taking the pan off the heat because you don't want to overcook the spices. Powdered spices take less time to cook than whole, so again, you don't want too much heat in there in the pan. So we're using turmeric powder and chili powder. This is Kashmiri chili powder. Kashmiri chili again is we use it a lot in our cooking, known for its kind of color and flavor rather than its heat. And it's this beautiful bright red color that imparts the flavor color to the cooking. It's lovely. Okay, so then the main ingredient comes next. These tomatoes, which you just like roughly chop them, add them into the pan.
I think the size and chopping of these will please our students, that it's not brunoise or julienne or degorge and blanch them and take the skins off. And no, I think this will please our students, Chef. You like this one? Yeah,
very easy. I mean, taking skins off tomatoes.
Shh! Don't go there. Don't go there, Chef.
I'll say nothing.
Thank you.
De-seeding tomatoes as well. I guess there's a time and a place, you know. But you're right, this is very kind of rustic cooking. What we're going to do at the end is basically strain it, so it doesn't really matter about the cut of the tomato or any of the ingredients that go in, because what we're going to end up with is water. So as long as that water tastes right, that's the most important thing. So really, you just want to cook these tomatoes a little bit, just so they soften. Now, I'm not going to blend this up, because it'll make a terrible noise, but once that's cooled, you blitz it. That's what these ladies did earlier. And you end up with a powder like this. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. Oh, there you go. It's got quite a coarse texture to it, and that's the dal, which is what you want. You want it to have a little bit of texture. Okay, so that looks like the rasam seasoning.
Will the dal thicken the sauce at all, or is it just there for flavour?
A little bit.
It will.
A little bit, yeah. It will. A bit of both, really.
Okay.
Yeah. What next? So the other ingredients can really go in once you see the tomatoes starting to soften. You can start thinking about putting the other ingredients in. So we've got jaggery. So jaggery will help to balance the dish itself. So the tomatoes are very acidic, obviously. You have this raw tamarind pulp again, which is extremely acidic. So the jaggery will help kind of balance that out a little bit. And then we've got some sliced garlic, green chili, and asafoetida or hing. I don't know if you've come across this in the past. Very acquired smell. It's very sulfuric. I bought some back from Delhi in January, and it's like, in its raw form, it's like a little crystal, and it really smells. I brought it into my flat, and I had to take it straight out and leave it in one of the restaurants because I wasn't very popular. So wherever I've just been leaving it around London until I use it, but it's a rather amazing ingredient. Used a lot to kind of emulate those flavors of onion and garlic for people who don't eat those kind of ingredients. So like the Jain community in India, they eat nothing that comes from underneath the ground, which includes like onion and garlic. And so they use asafoetida or hing to kind of recreate those sort of flavors. Also has this sort of pungent sort of acidity to it. So it's quite an unusual ingredient. It's something that you don't necessarily want to cook off too much. You want to sort of, with a lot of spices, particularly ground spices and masalas that you make, quite often there are certain seasonings and masalas that you want to use towards the end of the cooking. So the rasam seasoning, for example, or hing in this example, a garam masala, which you'll all be familiar with, whatever it may be, whatever garam masala it is, because garam masala varies everywhere you go, you want that to generally go in at the end of the cooking process. So if you're making a big curry, you start off with your whole spices, you use a few powdered spices at the beginning, you cook those off, and then the garam masala is used at the end, almost like a seasoning. So you've got your sugar and your salt, and you've got your acid in the form of tamarind or lime, and then you have your garam masala, which kind of like rounds the dish off. So you can see now that the tomatoes are kind of broken down a little bit. So we can go in with our other ingredients, and again, just bung it all in. Tamarind for sourness, garlic, green chilies. So we tend to use two types of chili in the restaurant: fresh green chilies and dried red chilies. Both have different properties, both spicy, of course, but green chilies give that freshness to dishes. A pinch of asafoetida, and your jaggery. So jaggery is like I think this should be used a lot more in cooking outside of India. It's sort of a raw cane sugar that's been reduced and reduced and reduced and reduced to the point where it's almost like fudge, isn't it? And I think it's delicious to eat it on its own. You know that kind of West Country fudge that we eat here? That's kind of what jaggery is, really. So it's kind of pure, unadulterated, unfiltered sweetness, which I think, you know, in comparison to a lot of the white sugar that we use, I think it's a lot better for you and a lot more delicious. It's kind of got those like dark molasses, brown sugar properties that I think add that extra dimension of flavor. What else? Coriander. So with the coriander, we use all of it. Thanks. And for dishes like this, use the stem. The stem has arguably more flavor than the leaves, so definitely don't waste that. Okay, so that goes in. Again, you can chop that however you like. And then some of your rasam seasoning, and then we're just going to cover with some water. And that's it, really. Once the water's there, once you've covered it, you leave the dish just to bubble over for a little bit. We'll leave it on the side. And then if you're making this like we're making it, and you want to chill it down, it would be good to make this the day before, because you want to give the mixture plenty of time to kind of incorporate all the flavors in there. Thank you. But try this dish either way. You know, whether you have it in a puri or not. I think it's in the winter it would be a lovely thing hot, and in the summer I think it's a lovely thing cold. Okay. So that's your tomato rasam. Again, I'm going to leave this on the side just to kind of continue cooking, but slowly, just to infuse those flavors. And once we're happy with that in like 20, 30 minutes, then again, we'll do what these ladies did earlier, which is strain it, or blend it and strain it, so we get this like nice concentrated water from it, and then we'll chill it down. Okay.
Sorry, the spice mixture.
Yeah.
How's the best way to store that so it stays fresh, and how long will it stay fresh for?
In a glass jar. It's just a sealed glass jar.
Okay.
And it will stay fresh for like, you know, if you store it in a cool, dark place, then for, I don't know, a few weeks.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So you can make it in batches if you're going to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is quite a lot, you know, unless you're making a lot of rasam. It is quite a lot.
That's one service in your restaurant, chef. So.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. But it's, yeah, I think, you know, spices, it depends on the quality of spices that you're buying in the first place. So like if I go to my mum's house, for example, like the jars of spices that are still sitting on the side, I just throw them out every time I go there when she's out of the room. But you tend to like see the quality of spices in the vibrancy of their color and the state of them. You know, again, like visiting the Delhi spice market in January, everything is so vibrant. Where I bought that hing from, the cardamom is bright green, the fennel is bright green. Here they've lost their edge a little bit. So look out for like brightly coloured spices when you're buying them. Maybe don't go to the supermarket, and that will give you a longer shelf life already.
Right.
Thank you.
Cool.
So we are going with. So this next dish is called, well, we call it a Bat Ball curry. We took 15 of our team out to Mumbai in January, where we did a 2-day pop-up. And Mumbai used to be where I used to live and work, and so I was kind of like an unofficial tour guide, which Shona was there. It was great fun, and we did this pop-up. And then we went to Jaipur afterwards, a few of us, less of us, and we did this pop-up in Jaipur as well. And it was on my last journey out of Jaipur, being driven to the airport, and by a taxi driver called Abdul, who was telling me, he spoke about me being a chef, and an Indian chef, which they never believe me when I tell them that. They literally like, yeah, sure. He spoke about getting into cooking during lockdown, and he told me about this. He's like, I made this curry called Bat Ball over and over again. And I thought, obviously, with Kricket being the name of our restaurant, I was like, I really hope this is good, because then we can just put it back in the restaurant when I get home. So I took my pen and paper out, and I was like, okay, well, what's in it? And he explained it to me, and it sounded delicious. And it was a curry using mutton. So, and it was this like Rajasthani, very simple curry. So I wrote it down, tried it when I came back, and it was good. So we have it on the menu now. So again, very simple, straightforward dish that, I mean, I couldn't believe it when he told me how few ingredients were in it. So I did kind of try and make him elaborate, and the more we spoke, the more ingredients that were added. But yeah, it works, I think. Also, I'm really into like using a lot more mutton these days rather than lamb. I don't know if you use much mutton here, but it's I find, you know, we go through a lot of like minced meat, so keemas and whatnot, and mutton, I think, for me, just lends like a much more distinct, like powerful, fatty flavor than lamb. I think it's very nice. So we kind of tend to lean towards those kind of old sheep now.
Stands up against spice a lot better as well, doesn't it? Because it's stronger as well. So
yeah, exactly.
You're using that.
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily want like a Easter Sunday leg of mutton.
No.
But you know, grind it up and hide it somewhere, and it's quite nice. Yeah. So we're starting this process again. So we've gone from like the south sort of up a bit to Rajasthan in this dish. So we're starting the process with ghee. So quite a bit of ghee. Again,
on these cooking tours that you take your staff on, do you ever take any ex-head chefs at all? Just asking. No.
I mean,
fine.
you know,
Just in case.
who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? We'll see. It would be nice. That's fun. We've only done 2 actually.
That's 2 I've missed.
Yeah. We've done 2. The first one was just before COVID hit. We were kind of talking about it earlier, and then we missed out a few years because of COVID, and then this was our first opportunity to go back, which is really exciting because, you know, we've had people who, like Shona, you've worked in the company for how many years? 6 years, and you've never been to India. So it's very important that, you know, the people that work for us and that are selling Indian food understand where it comes from. And, you know, I think you learning about the culture was the most important thing for me, rather than the food. Obviously, the food is very important. So, yeah, it was a good experience. And yeah, hopefully we'll keep doing it.
Yeah, it's invaluable for staff, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's invaluable.
I think so. I mean, it was hectic, very hectic week. I don't know if you've been to Mumbai, but it's, you know, it's a busy place. But it's great. So yeah, starting this dish with ghee, and then throwing in tomatoes. Again, we're going to cook this right down, so it doesn't really matter how these tomatoes are chopped. It's a very rustic sort of hunter-style curry. I find with a lot of like Rajasthani meat curries, there's quite a lot of fat and salt, I guess, and chili involved in them, which sort of, I think probably traditionally would sort of preserve the curry as one carries it on his back through the desert. That is the case with like a lal mas, which is Rajasthan's probably the most famous meat curry. You know, it's a hunter's curry, so it's built to sustain you over days in the heat. So start with that. Tomatoes just need to kind of cook down. And then we've got our mutton, which is, yeah, and milk for the bread. Perfect. So, thanks. These mutton meatballs. I guess this is I never really asked about the kind of bat and ball element, but I mean, these are obviously the ball elements of the curry. I'm not sure what the bat is, but we'll take it.
Could be there's so much chili it knocks you for 6. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So mutton mince, again, nice coarsely ground, and I mean, I think when he told me about it, he was like, "There's just some mint and salt in the mix," so it's fairly kind of plain, but mint is key in the flavouring of this mutton. Obviously, mutton, mint, or lamb and mint go very well together. So you want quite a lot of that going through the meatballs, because, again, most of the flavour will come from the sauce in this dish, albeit with so few ingredients, it does have good flavour. But with the mutton, mutton can be quite kind of, can be quite plain, so we don't add a huge amount to it. We've got some bread here. Then we've got some just plain white bread. In the restaurant, we make like milk bread or pao that we serve with like pao bhaji and various things like that. It has a very short shelf life, so any stale bread we use for this purpose, basically. But you kind of want to soak your bread, perhaps add a little bit of water. Just let that soak, and that will go into the mixture as well. So again, all the usual suspects that go into this: ginger paste, garlic paste. A spoon. Thanks. So they go into the mutton. then we've got some fried onions. So this gives it like a nice sort of caramelized, like deeper flavor. Gives it a bit more depth, basically. We've got some fried garlic as well. Salt. Make sure you season them nicely. Some dried Kashmiri chilies. Garam masala. It's not in the mix. No, it's just in there. No, these aren't in the mix either, are they? No. It's in the wrong tray. It would have worked fine in there. So that's it. Very simple mix. Thank you. And then take a bit of this bread as well. Do you have any gloves? Yes. There is? There you go. I forget sometimes. So garam masala, okay, in the mix. Thank you. So just mix it together, and then we'll form little balls. And then once the sauce is cooked, then I mean the best way to do it, certainly if you're doing it on a domestic level, you kind of want to just poach the little mutton balls in the sauce itself. Again, you know, with the quantities that we do, we tend to steam some off beforehand, which we could probably think about doing, steaming or putting it on. So yeah, we just steam it in a tray and then it goes into the sauce. But you want to keep them quite, again, like I said, the mutton is naturally quite fatty. So it retains a lot of moisture in the sauce. And if you cook it in the sauce, then it adds a richness and a fattiness to the finished dish. Okay, so we'll mix that nicely together. Any questions? Yes. Hello.
Would you say that mutton is a meat that all chefs should
I think so. Yeah. I mean, otherwise, what are the old sheep good for? Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're seeing it a lot more in menus these days. It's quite trendy to cook with mutton almost, you know. But yes, I do think that it is like using it a lot more in our menus now. I really like it. And like I said earlier, yeah, okay, maybe you don't want it in a raw form or like on a Sunday roast, carved pink. Perhaps that's not the nicest thing. The older the animals get, the more care they need in cooking. So you know, you see it with like ex-dairy cows and things like that. It's delicious. They have a lot more flavour, yes, but they require a lot more skill in when you're cooking them. So yes, I think you should use it more, but at the same time, be prepared to, you know, pay a lot more attention when you're actually cooking it. Depends. Yeah, it depends. So in this form, you know, these will cook 5 minutes in the sauce and they'll be done. But it's mince, right? So it's different. If you're going, I did a mutton kebab the other day, whereby just to try it out, and what we did is we tenderized the meat with raw papaya paste, and that is a common technique used in India, because in India you see mutton everywhere on the menu. It's goat, pretty much the whole time. It's goat. I remember when I ordered mutton for the first time in my restaurant, and just loads of goats got brought in, and that tends to be what you're given. So they need tenderizing. They need a bit more care, and raw papaya. So if you get a unripe green papaya and you blend it into a paste, and then you marinate your meat in that. So like if it's a cubed leg or a shoulder or whatever, overnight, and that will tenderize the meat. So it's kind of your first marination stage. And again, when you're marinating meat, quite often you'll have two stages of marination. The first one might be the tenderizing or the preservation process. So when it comes to like fish, for example, you might preserve it with turmeric and salt. That gets rid of bacteria. You know, if your fish isn't as fresh as it could be. And then your second marination might involve the kind of the primary flavors that you want to get into that dish, whether it's a yogurt marination, whether it's green or yellow, whatever. And yeah, with mutton, for example, I think, like I said, treat it with a bit more care. But that raw papaya thing is a really useful thing to know. You can also use it, things like pineapple juice does the same thing. Basically acid breaking down the meat. But yeah, I think you can get hold of some mutton and definitely try it out. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. I can't quite hear you, sorry. Yeah. So the specifically Indian ingredients, sort of, yeah. I guess it's where do you live? North London. Okay, so I'm not that familiar with North, but I mean South London. I know. Yeah, I mean just sort of Asian supermarkets or Indian specific supermarkets, whereby you tend to go to an area where there is like a Indian diaspora, and that you'll find shops there, whether it's Wembley or I used to go to Tooting a lot when we first opened the shipping container. So Tooting was my like, when things wouldn't arrive, I'd get in my car and I'd whiz straight down there. Curry leaves were illegal when I opened Kricket for the first time. So I had to drive down, so no one would deliver them to me. So I had to go down to Tooting to get them. But yeah, those kind of shops, and they're amazing as well. You know, like go somewhere like Tooting and kind of go into these shops, and they go on and on and on, these rows of spices and specialist ingredients, and you'll see a whole lot of stuff that you probably don't know what it is. So yeah, I mean, you can get anything these days, you know, and you can get anything online. But I think probably the best way of doing it is to go to these shops, and because they have fresh ingredients as well. So they'll have curry leaves, and they'll have mangoes, and they'll have all these things that have come directly from India just to that shop. So yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question.
Indian specifically, or no? So lots of places. I mean, London is spoiled for choice, isn't it? But I would say I've always kind of said my favourite restaurant is a place called Perilla in Stoke Newington. Have you heard of that? Yeah. I think what they do is. Have you been?
I haven't been, but I know it.
Yeah, I think what Ben does with his food is very unique and delicious, and it's pretty consistent as well. They've just opened another one, I think called Morcello or something like that, as well, which is also very good. I'm a sucker for Chinese food. It's like my comfort food, and so I quite often you'll find me in Chinatown. But yeah, I think Perilla's probably my number one go-to. So Indian restaurants, I tend, because I eat quite a lot of it in my own, so I don't tend to eat out too many Indian restaurants. But I think if I was going to, I'd probably go down the more authentic route. So probably restaurants slightly unlike ours, really, because I don't think we can claim to be authentic, even though we are trying to bring authenticity through in the taste of our food. I wouldn't necessarily say we are authentic. So sometimes I crave like a home-style chicken curry, so I'll go, you know, to one of those places instead. There's a really good vegetarian spot towards Tottenham Court Road. I can't quite remember the name of it, but that's a very nice. Huh? Yeah, I like that place. Yeah. I don't eat out as much as I'd like to, I'd probably say. And there are restaurants coming up the whole time. So it's always a good experience as well when you do eat out, because you learn something as well. You know, we're constantly changing the menus in our restaurants, and you know, I think the best way to discover new food is, of course, a trip to India is like the number one, right? But it's not always. It's not always possible, and the next best thing is to do a read books and eat out elsewhere to get ideas, because as much as we'd like to say all ideas are our own,
Yes,
all ideas come from somewhere.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So what next? We need to kind of finish this curry, really. Where's all the stuff? We got the ginger. Oh, thank you, sorry. Oops. Okay. So you see the tomatoes have kind of cooked down. And right now we've just got two ingredients in there, right? So it's just ghee and tomatoes. That's the base of your curry. So then we'll go in with the powdered spices. Chili powder, turmeric again. Yeah. We'll do that next, shall we? Yeah. Turmeric should be kind of seen and not tasted too much, I think. So it tends to be added when you add the chili powder as well. So I usually go with the quantities of 2 to 1, so 2 part chili to 1 part turmeric, generally. So the main kind of flavor within this curry base is, apart from the tomatoes, is the ginger. So ginger is providing heat in this case, and you know, you can get heat from chili, or you can get it from peppercorn, or you can get it from various spices. But ginger gives that sort of different level, kind of quality of spice. So we go in with ginger next, and then green chili. And we don't really want to cook that out too much, especially with green chilies. I find green chilies, ginger, you don't really want to cook it out too much, because you want that kind of raw property quite often to be there. Not always the case with ginger, but in this case, I do want it there. I want it to be fresh in the foreground of the dish. So that's that. Once it's kind of cooked down and it's simmering, we'll add it here, and we'll finish it with some yogurt. So meatballs are to be shaped and then into kind of this kind of size. Okay, we've seen them in the oven, and what we're going to do is we're going to finish them in the sauce. Have we got the sauce? Yeah. We put them in there and then lift them out. Yeah. The rasam is cooked. It's had a good amount of time to kind of bubble over, and then what you want to do is you want to blend it up, and then you want to strain it and have it either hot or cold. The curry sauce just needs to be finished with the mutton. So I think it's probably nearly time to start tasting. The only other thing left to do is to garnish. Thank you. The garnish for the mutton is a smoked chili ghee. Again, just to add that kind of like that Rajasthani sort of chili, that kind of smokiness to it. So we have a blowtorch somewhere.
Yeah, chef.
Thank you.
You right?
Yeah, no, if it goes wrong,
Under your state.
Yeah, I know. Just so you can save me. It's a really good way of imparting smoke into dishes. We do it quite a lot with our dishes in the restaurant. You heat up the charcoal, and and you basically throw a load of ghee on it and then cover it really quickly, and it continues smoking. And then that flavoured fat, that flavoured ghee, will have obviously taken on the smoke, and then you can add that into curries to kind of finish off and give that kind of smoky flavor profile. Sometimes you can add like spices, maybe a clove, maybe some cinnamon. Again, that will go into the flavor of the fat, and that will impart into the dish as well. So this will take a little bit of time. Has anyone got any questions at the moment? Hello. What is it that appealed to me? So when I went to Mumbai, so I did 2 years under your guidance, pretty much.
2?
Well, you left, but I carried on for a bit.
Okay. A bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
a bit, but I learned. I'm not just sucking up, but I learned most of it from you, to be honest. You taught me how to get the basics right, which I think is very important. So then, if you want to do other things, it forms a great base. So I did that, and then I got offered a job in India to open a European restaurant, and as you'll probably agree, I was hugely underqualified and inexperienced, and but they didn't know that, so I was like, yeah, okay, and then I went over there, and I'd never been to India before, and I quickly got quite bored of doing my food, because I went with the cafe anglais style food, right? I wanted a relatively small menu, French food and British food and all that kind of stuff, and that didn't go down terribly well. So they wanted big menus, continental food, and this and that, everything else. So I quite quickly became a lot more interested in Indian food, because if you've been to India, you can't escape. There's food everywhere. It's amazing everywhere you go. There's street food and on every corner, and it's different everywhere you go. And it's such a vast country that you never stop learning. So I found that very interesting, and also very very inspiring. I find the kind of the historical influences on the food, how they vary so much. It's a country with a huge amount of history, and so many different countries have colonized, and I think us Brits probably left the least amount of impact on their cuisine, but other countries did, like the Portuguese in Goa, for example. And the Persians in the north. Like, it's very, very interesting. So it was really that kind of like the history of the food I found the most interesting thing, and seemed to be like it was like seems to me like it is a forever evolving cuisine, and I guess that made me feel like we could, or I could, or whoever, we could maybe do a little bit more with it in London. And then I came back to London with the idea of cricket, but without really having an idea how to cook Indian food, and it's not something you can pretend to know about. So I went to work for Vivek Singh in the Cinnamon Kitchen, who again was very generous and very a great teacher, and he kind of taught me the basics of how to cook with spices and things like that. Yeah. So this is now hot.
Hot. Do you need some tongs?
I think it's okay. So you put the ghee on the charcoal. Might need another bit of foil. I might have burned through a little bit. How's your extraction?
We'll find out.
Yeah, find out. Thanks. So you kind of let that do its thing.
And even though the ghee's not melted, it will take on the smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it'll also impart a bit of heat into there as well.
Right.
So I'm hoping that will melt a bit. You can kind of see it a little bit. All sorts going on in there. So that will impart flavour into the ghee. It should melt it a bit, and if it doesn't, then we'll just melt it a bit. Okay, so
I think what you said about always learning and this sort of thing. This is a sorcerer and his apprentice switching here. I mean, Will came to me as a young cook, and as you said, taught him all the basics. And here I am now, learning the string to my bow, which don't understand. I've never learned. So it's fantastic that even standing here, going to his restaurant and eating, I still learn. We still learn. So it's fantastic that it's your turn to teach me. Fantastic, brilliant.
Yeah. Well, thanks, but I think
That's absolutely right.
we're always learning in the restaurant. Like I said, there's so much to know about Indian food. I cannot promise to know even a fraction of what is available. So yeah, it's very exciting. It's very exciting. Any other questions for now, guys? You can see that. So this sauce, still red. Hello. Bowl like this. Fill it halfway with ghee. Just do exactly the same thing. Yeah. Because all you're using is like a little bit of a little bit as a garnish for each thing, for each like mouthful. So you don't need too much of it. Again, I think if we make it in the restaurant, we probably won't make more than that. So yeah.
But that bowl would be 100 portions.
Yeah. Give the yogurt a little light whisk, and then add it to the tomatoes to finish off that sauce. You can see it's quite different, the colour.
So for our students, that's Monte au beurre. That's whisking
Yeah, exactly.
50 grams of butter in, and you're adding
Yeah,
yogurt.
exactly.
There you go.
It's dairy, isn't it?
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yep. Do we want the balls in?
Yeah, I think let's get the balls in here, shall we? Thanks. So these are just going to go in and just poach nice and lightly in the sauce. How long were they in the oven for? 5 minutes. They're cooked. And then the last thing we need to do is, before we feed you, is do the tomato mixture for the pani puri. So again, when it comes to pani puris, you tend to, depending on what you're using, you fill up the bottom of the shell with ingredients such as like spiced potatoes or chickpeas or things like that, and then you add in the water. So you've got that different textures, the texture of the shell, and then the vegetables or the fruit in the bottom, and then the water itself. You made one for me the other day. What was in that? Raw mango, which is very good. The kind of possibilities are endless, and I think you're doing something with pani puris, aren't you?
And our, I think it's in the next sort of 4 weeks. We're doing a student social event, and if you come to one event at the Cordon Bleu, that's one of the ones that it should be. In the student social event, the Diploma of Culinary Management students. So they've done the basic, intermediate, superior, and they're now on the culinary management. We thought it might be nice that they come up with their own ideas to give you little tasters on the night. And they're going to do lots of different pani puri, but with influences from their country. So some people from Singapore are going to do some sort of satay in there, or there's going to be all sorts of different little flavors. So it's taking the is it the puri or the pani or the pani?
The puri is the shell.
The puri is the shell,
Yeah.
and just using it as a vehicle for flavors that influence in their countries.
Yeah.
So that'd be exciting.
I say earlier, you see them on a lot of restaurant menus now, whether they're Indian or not. I find pani puris,
Right.
because it's like, it is a little explosion I think people are in your mouth. I think people are kind of latching onto that now.
So when's the new restaurant opening, chef?
July.
When's it in July?
Yeah. So we've got. Have you guys? If you've been to Soho restaurant, have you been to Soma? Has anyone been to Soma?
Has anybody been to Soma?
It's a bar.
Oh, you got to go to Soma.
You've been to Soma, haven't you?
Once or twice.
Yeah.
Late nights.
It's our cocktail bar next
it's
door
fantastic.
to the restaurant in Soho, and it is it's a little late night underground cocktail bar, which where the drinks are kind of echo the food next door in that they're Indian inspired. They're a little bit more like Indian and beyond, and probably a little bit smarter than the restaurant. You know, the restaurant's quite casual and relaxed. And Soma's quite relaxed as well, but it's a little bit more, perhaps a little bit more refined.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're opening a Kricket and a Soma in July, under one roof.
I didn't realise there was going to be a Soma there. Okay.
So it's in the same building, but it's going to be separate entrances, like it is pretty much in Soho.
Okay. And do ex-chefs get an invite? No, I'm joking.
Well, yeah, you will.
No,
You actually will. Yeah. You're more likely to get that than
Oh, really?
than India. Yeah.
Look at that. Oof.
Okay. So sorry. The tomato mix. Last thing. This is where slightly better knife skills are required. Have you got mint over there? Is this your
But just
mint?
behind. We've got some here. Yeah, we've got,
And have you got the chopped tomatoes for the pani puri? Yeah, for you.
and we've got all the mint as well, right? You cut all the mint. Yeah.
You got a little mixing bowl for the tomatoes. So for the base of our pani puris, the tomatoes that go in the bottom, we're just trying to replicate the flavors of the rasam,
When these come back, we'll use these.
and we vary the tomatoes according to like the season. Tomatoes you can get good tomatoes year out. I think these days, good winter tomatoes, even better summer tomatoes. So we chop those up, then add green chilli, and again, sort of replicating those flavors that are in the rasam already. Curry leaves. And diced shallots. So like similar, same flavors, but in its kind of fresh state.
And as you rightly said, all the ingredients that work hot and cold and
Yeah.
you know, good flavors.
Yeah. Okay, so should we start assembling the pani puri? Yeah. You guys eating already? You're hungry. You're hungry.
They don't stop eating from 8 o'clock in the morning with their food, and
Yeah.
the cuisine students trade with the pastry students, and the pastry students trade with the cuisine students. I've seen it.
Yeah.
They don't stop eating. Yeah.
It's nice.
Absolutely.
Lovely.
The best of both worlds.
Yeah. Yes. So what do I think of Indian desserts? Yeah. I mean, some of them are an acquired taste.
We're gonna have it.
So they're very sweet, generally very sweet. They're very resourceful in terms of
Do
like
you
what they
have
can make. The possibilities are endless. Like some of the sweet shops that you go
Let's get
to,
that out.
they're incredible. Like what's on display, you know, visually, you know, they're as good as any like French pâtissier, I think. You know,
So we
the,
did one
the
tray at a
colours
time.
and the shapes and
We do one tray at
the
a time.
and adorned with like gold and silver. It's like they're very beautiful. And some of them
So
are totally delicious, particularly the ones with like
Have to
nuts
serve
running
quick.
through them and like jaggery to give that again kind of like fudge-like sweetness. But they, you know, I think they are quite an acquired taste, and I think for the UK, I think people might struggle with some Indian desserts, if I'm honest, and that's it's not their fault, you know. Our what we've made in terms of like sweets and stuff is not nearly as impressive as what they can produce. I still think they're underrepresented, and I think people don't know enough about them. People know like about gulab jamuns and things like that, perhaps, but I think there's a lot more to be discovered with Indian sweets. But I think they're very complex and beautiful. I think, you know, like I said, once you go and you see those shops in like and what they have to offer, I think it's amazing. Yeah. And when it comes to like menu engineering for us, we kind of go through we have a small dessert section, like 1 or 2 items only. But what we tend to do is either look at a sort of Western dessert and see how we can like put an Indian twist on that, or more interestingly, look at an Indian dessert and think perhaps how can we make that maybe more accessible. Yeah. Chaat masala is the last ingredient. Put lime juice in there. Chaat masala, if anyone doesn't know what that is, get to know it, because I think it's a delicious seasoning that once you get used to it, can be applied on so many different things. It's very salty. It's sort of black sulfuric salt. So when it comes to the pani puri, pick the puri up. Sorry to tell you how to eat, and put it in your mouth whole. Don't bite it all in one. Take it off the spoon and in whole. Where's the rasam? Is there any left? Amazing.
Oh, it's in the fridge.
In here? It's good. It's good.
No, try with this.
You want me to try it? Okay. It's quite spicy. You like it? It's like spicy and fresh and a little sour, a little sweet. It's quite exciting, I think. If people come to the restaurant, I will advise them to have this as their first mouthful, because you know, it kind of wakes you up a little bit, you know. Hello. It evolves, really. You know, when I made the first menu in the shipping container, it was on an A5 piece of paper, and we just, you know, I tried something and I put it on the menus. I actually only ever tried the dishes like once before we opened for the first night. So thank God people. Oh, well, to be honest, most of the first night was my friends in the shipping days, so they have to say they like it. Right? But, in terms of menu engineering, menu development, you'll soon find that there are certain items on the menu that you can't take off. And they're the bell puri and the sampai pakora and the chicken, carrot fried chicken, and the pumpkin or the squash. So those are dishes that we just can't really take off the menu. And I guess they form the kind of backbone of our menu in some respects. If you know they're not coming off, then what can we build around them? Yes, we work seasonally, we work locally, but who doesn't these days? I don't want to talk about it too much. You know, we use only British fish and pretty much all British meat as well. So that kind of dictates what we can use as well. But otherwise, it's just trying to constantly think about what's going to go on the menu next. We used to do big wholesale changes, 4 changes a year, whereby we would. I've just done a major one after India where we changed like 80% of the menu, which is a lot of work because it's not as simple as just having one dish on one day and another on the next. It requires a huge amount of thought process that goes on behind the scenes, recipes, and allergen sheets, and stock processes, all like different ingredients, training, front and back. So these big wholesale changes I'm trying to move away from a little bit. Now I've done this big change this year, visually in the menu as well as what's on it. I want to focus a bit more on making small incremental changes. So we do a print run every 3 weeks. And in those 3 weeks, I've got the time to go, right, what's not selling? What do I think has run its course? What is running out of season? All those questions need to be answered. The best way is just constantly forward thinking about the next thing and try and look at it as a whole, always as a whole, and have a balanced menu. But there's always, I mean, whether you want to call them mistakes or whatever it may be, I get very quickly very bored of what I've done, so I want to change it up. And I quite often look at things that I've done and be like, well, that was terrible. So it's also about not having an ego. Just because you think something's good doesn't mean that it is good. If the customers aren't thinking the same thing, then you should be big enough to be like, all right, well, fine. I also like to put something on the menu that challenges the customers as well. Whether that's a liver or something a little bit more unusual that they wouldn't perhaps normally go for. And some of it's data these days, You've got to look at the data and see what's moving, what's not. Look at feedback. Do people say consistently nice things about one thing and not about another? You've got to take note, you've got to listen to them. And like I said, not be too proud, not think, you're too good to not listen, because that's certainly not how you should be. Has everyone had a pani puri? Good? Yeah, good. Feel more awake now? Yeah. A bit of a kick in the face, isn't it?
Any other questions for Chef? Any other question? You just want food now, don't you? You just want food.
Me? No, but would anyone like another one? Yeah?
Can we ask?
Yeah, just fill them up.
Hello?
Fill them up and hand them round.
Testing.
Why don't one of you carry the tray and another one fill up? Let's go around.
Hi, Chef. Thank you for being with us today. Have a question. During your travels to India, which was your most memorable dish? And is it on your menu or a version of it on your menu?
Yeah. So every time I go back, there's something new to try. And I always try and visit somewhere different so I can, try new stuff. the main purpose of why I go back is to of course, I love going there, but it's to come back with ideas. I think bel puri for me is something that has been on the menu since day one, and it's one of the first street food dishes I tried in Mumbai. Whether it's very much inherent to Mumbai, that dish, or that version of bel puri, you get different versions elsewhere. But I think that's probably one that kind of stood with me. It's like stayed with me. And if you don't know do you know what it is? No. It's a dish made with puffed rice and like raw vegetables, like raw mango, and which is acidic rather than sweet, and onion, raw onion, and it's bound together with chaat masala, that seasoning. Coriander chutney, and then we top ours with tamarind and yogurt. It's like crispy and spicy and fresh and sweet and sour and delicious. And I think that's probably like the first dish and the one that sort of inspired me to know that Indian food is very exciting and like very simple in that respect, but very exciting. Yeah, maybe you made it the other day, huh? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Are we ready to serve? Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so. The ghee is done. I think it needs salt. I think you might need to tell me if it needs salt.
Me?
Yeah, because you might need a bit of salt. Huh? No? There you go, that's why I asked. Yeah?
Not as hot as I thought it would be.
No. It says green chili to me. Yeah. For sure, I'll help you. I got the ghee here. The mint is somewhere. Perfect. How many are we gonna do per bowl? Two per bowl?
We've got enough.
Yeah?
Is that all right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So if you put that in there,
Uh-huh.
and then we just serve. We do one tray, and they can hand around. We've got cutlery, chef. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Let's go.
Great.
Something like that, chef.
Yeah,
Bit more sauce.
bit more sauce, why not? Yeah. So give it a little bit more heat, these chilies.
You could start minting them.
Yeah, mint them and
Minting
go.
and take them. And done. There's the mint properly.
Your mum.
Hmm? Yeah. Well, not in the dish.
No, I know that.
Yeah, you can leave it in there, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's all good.
Okay, we start taking.
Yeah, let's go.
your life out, Amy.
Huh? Yeah, it'll do. It could be smokier, but it's fine. Oh, are you talking about this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the gravy.
Yeah, it's quite light, but it tastes good. Tastes good.
Done.
You know, imitate me all evening.
Huh?
You know, trouble me all evening. Sorry, चम्मच where's the ghee? मेरे पास है ना? नहीं, वो ज़्यादा हो जाएगा.
You see? I brought that a bit of the beat. English and Indian mix, you see?
Yeah,
Huh?
it's called English.
That's why it's so easy to understand.
You change from Hindi to English, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Where am I going?
That's the Hindi.
Cricket
Yeah?
is a fusion restaurant.
Yes, chef.
Did you have an extra pani puri?
How
Sure.
they out, ladies? You didn't count.
Got it? Good man. Yeah, let me do something.
Sorry, chef. Sorry, chef.
I forgive you.
Can we make sure that the staff at the back get one each as well?
Yeah, I gave.
Did you already?
Stuff, yeah.
Bless
But I
you.
didn't give this yet.
No, but they had a penny.
Yeah.
Done.
Please wait for the to get through.
Hey, I told her all she knows, huh?
Sorry, boy.